fear. It's something we all have. All of us are afraid of something. And so today I want to ask you what your fear is. What are you afraid of? And since we're all friends, and you can actually become better friends with somebody if you know each other's fears. And so today I want to talk about our fears. And so what is your fear? And if you are watching this on YouTube or Facebook or MySpace or my website, in the comment section, write what you're afraid of. Now, since I'm asking you what your fear is, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what my fear is. But before I can just tell you my fear, I have to give you a background to it so you can understand what my fear really is. Well, when I was younger, and whenever somebody would ask me a question like, what are you afraid of? I never really knew what to say. I never really knew what my fear was. Now, I knew I had a fear because everyone has a fear, and I knew that I had times where I was afraid, but I just didn't really know what I was afraid of. Like, I wasn't afraid of the normal stuff. Like, I wasn't afraid of snakes or afraid of spiders or afraid of anything, like, normal. So I didn't really know what it was that I was afraid of. So then I looked at the top 2 fears of the world. And I thought, well, maybe I'm afraid of one of these things. Well, one of the 2 is obviously death. Death is one of the common fears. But I'm not afraid of death, and I wasn't afraid of death because of my belief system. My belief system basically tells me that if I die, I go to a better place. Now, it's not that I want to die, but it's just that I'm not afraid of death. And Paul said, for me to live is Christ and to die is gain. So I'm not afraid of death. So then I looked at the other one, and surprisingly, death is actually the number 2 fear. The number 1 fear is public speaking. So in other words, some people would rather die than speak in front of a group. Now, I'm not afraid of public speaking. Yes, I do get nervous, but that's just nerves. I'm not really afraid when I go up and speak in front of a group. I'm not really afraid. I just have nerves. And so I thought, well, I don't know what I'm afraid of. Well, in the summer of 2004 started the discovery of my fear. My parents had just installed a built-in pool in the backyard. And my brother and I that summer after I graduated from high school in 2004, we went swimming a lot. And one day we were out swimming and we just happened to notice that the roof of the house almost overlapped the deep end part of the pool. And we thought, I bet we could jump off the roof into the pool. So we're like, this is going to be awesome. So we get up on the roof, we look at it, we said, yes, we could do this. This is easy. This will be awesome. We could do it. Well, my brother, being the more crazy, outgoing, try something new person, he's decided to go first. So he looked and, did a couple practice runs, and then he ran and jumped off the roof into the pool, and it looked awesome, and he was like, dude, this is awesome. You've got to do it. So I was like, yes, okay, this is going to be great. So then I take my turn. I look and I started to have a fear, and I thought, why am I afraid? What's the big deal? I'm not afraid of getting hurt because I'll get over it. I'm not afraid of dying, like I've talked about before. And my brother just did it, and everything's gonna be fine. What am I afraid of? And I didn't know what my fear was. I wasn't afraid of heights either, and I knew that the water was gonna stop me. Nothing was gonna hurt. I just didn't know why I was afraid. But I got over it, I ran, I jumped off the roof into the pool, and it was awesome. But the interesting thing was, ever since that time, I've never had that fear. Never. I've jumped off that roof 100 times, and it was only that first time that I had that fear. So that day kind of perplexed me. I thought, what was that fear? Because I want to know what that fear was. Well, it wasn't until a year later, in the summer of 2005, my brother and my friend and I decided to go do something. We decided to go skydiving. Yes, we went skydiving, and it was awesome. But I experienced that fear again. I wasn't afraid of heights. So even though I was 14,000 feet up in the air in the plane before we jumped, I wasn't afraid of that. I wasn't afraid of something going wrong, because if something went wrong, most likely I was going to die, and I wasn't afraid of death. So I didn't know what my fear was, and I was in the plane, and I realized I was afraid. And I was like, why am I so afraid? I don't know why I'm afraid. So I never really figured out what that fear was until after the whole experience. I looked back and I realized what I was afraid of. And I knew I was afraid because if you look at the video, when we're on the edge of the plane about to jump, I'm just completely white. I'm like completely just whited out. I mean, it was crazy. So I had a fear. But once we jumped, it was awesome. It was so cool. The best thrill ever. It's like the best roller coaster times 100. Because, I mean, you're free falling. Yeah, it's awesome. So what I realized was this. I have phobia, which is the fear of fear. And the fear of fear kind of comes from the fear of the unknown. And what happened is that I was afraid that I was going to be afraid during the free fall. In other words, I was afraid that my fear was going to ruin a great experience. Because I wanted to have a fun experience. I wanted to have a great experience free falling. But I didn't want to be afraid. So I was afraid that I was going to be afraid during the jump, and it was going to ruin the experience. And then I realized that that was the same fear that was happening when I jumped off the roof into the pool. I was afraid that my fear was going to mess me up and mess up the experience of me jumping off the roof into the pool. But once I did that, and I didn't have that fear, I never worried again. So my fear is phobophobia, fear of fear or fear of the unknown. And so I want to know what your fear is. What is your fear? So place it in the comments and wherever you're watching this video, and we could talk about fear. Anyways, that's it for today. And always remember, my name is James, and I am your friend.